Rainy Days podcast number 2. Today we're going to have a very important and special person from the local Seattle music scene and to have a chat with us. Matt Vaughan, owner of Easy Street Records and cassette tapes and compact discs and all that stuff. He's been in the record business since, probably late 80s. I've known him back since he just got out of high school and was involved with, his parents were involved with managing Queensryche at the time, and Shadow was playing. That's when I first met him and his sister Amy Vaughan. So we've known each other over the years, and I've watched him build up his business and also be a big part of the music scene in terms of helping people find a place to play, letting them consign music, and helping bring up artists that he cared about. So among those are Macklemore and Brandi Carlisle, and of course the Sonics have played there, and moi, as well as a bunch of other people that you may have heard of. But it's his record stores have a real earthy vibe. He even went so far as to have a old Seattle City Light telephone pole mounted in one corner so he could put flyers on it. Doesn't get any more real than that, staples and all. But he's spent a lot of time in music, supporting music, and is one of the originators of Record Store Day, which is a big boon to independent music stores all over the country. So Matt Vaughan, it's a pleasure to interview him, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Rainy Days podcast number 2. Thank you. Why don't we talk about a little bit about how you came to be a music purveyor?
Well, I think you know this, but my mom, in the 70s and early 80s was in the music business, which was pretty uncommon for women to be in. And
how did that happen? Was she like a satellite person, or?
No, she was what you call an independent radio promoter. So she would work with the Pat O'Days at KJR or the Steve Slaytons at KSW, and she would be hired by various record labels to shop their wares, shop their songs. So, in the mid 70s through 81, she was working for Casablanca, which is Kiss, and Donna Summer's Motown, MCA, Arista. And it was later in the late 70s, 78 or so, she wanted to kind of get a little bit closer to not just radio, but working with a band and try to make something happen from Seattle rather than all these national and international acts with songs that she was shopping. So she helped get a band called Strikers signed to Arista, and that was in 78. And it was pretty uncommon for a band in Seattle to get signed. Heart had been one of very few in the 70s that did get signed. And yet there was still hope for Seattle artists and musicians and bands, because Jimi Hendrix is from here, Quincy Jones is, the most storied Grammy-winning artist of all time. There was certainly hope that you could make something happen here in town. It just, we were up in Mongolia, up here in the upper left, and somehow she was able to get Clive Davis to come out. 77, 78. Stryker did not have a name yet. All they had was this demo, and they were going by the name of Randall Rosberg, which was Rick Randall and Scott Rosberg. There were 4 members in the band, but those were the 2 lead guys. And Clive loved the demo he had heard, and he might have been in Seattle for, a Barry Manilow concert at the same time. I'm not sure. But of course, here I am, 10 years old or whatever. I don't know who Clive Davis is.
How did your mom describe Clive Davis to you?
Well, I met him. Him and my mom and Randall and Rosberg picked me up from soccer practice. Clive Davis is in the passenger seat, and he is talking to Randall and Rosberg about, the songs and this and that. And I remember it being a super cold day. I was a pretty shy kid, and I'm sitting in between Randall and Rosberg, and Clive says, I like everything about you guys, but the name sucks. We can't have it. it's one thing to be Crosby and Stills, or nobody knows who you guys are. You can't go as Randall and Rosberg. And something hit me, and maybe it was because I was just come off the soccer field, and I said, "What about Stryker?" Clive Davis turns around, and is like, "That's it, kid. That's it." and Randall and Rosberg look at each other, passing me by, and they're like, "Sounds good if Clive likes it," and that became their name. So I got into the business at 10 years old.
Pretty good, man. That's good. That's a great story.
But what that did do is it kind of put my mom on the map a little bit, because hey, she had just got this band signed. She continued to do some label work and radio work, and then she takes my sister and I in '81, takes us to Skate King. Remember Skate King?
Oh, no, never heard of it. Yeah, Shadow used to play there all the time.
I know. And there was a battle of the bands, and there was one band called Myth, and there was another band called The Mob playing. And Myth had this phenomenal 4 or 5 octave range singer, opera singer, really. And then you had these BMX Hesher kids in The Mob that were a bit younger, but they didn't have a great singer. But they were great musicians. And I recall my mom somehow pulling the 4 guys from The Mob out in the parking lot and said, "Hey, if you could get that singer in that Myth band, now you really got something." I had a stepdad at the time who had a record shop on Belred Road, and it was called Easy Street Records, which is where the name comes from. It was more of a metal store. I remember we had a wall of death, and it would be like Maiden and Motorhead and Saxon.
You called it the Wall of Death?
And that's where I first worked. And I remember Todd Rockenfield, the brother of Scott Rockenfield, was the drummer of what would become Queensryche, brings this tape in and says, "Hey, those guys got together." And that was, the first song I remember us putting on, I was there that day, was Queen of the Reich. This would have been 1981.
I was talking with Mike about how, because there wasn't, how should I say this? There wasn't really a metal scene ahead of us in Seattle or the Northwest. We all were getting Kerrang magazine and following English bands. Also, we were listening to a lot of AC/DC from KSW, who helped break AC/DC back in the day. They were like the first station that started playing them. So there were a lot of other influences that were not necessarily mainstream US that we were kind of getting into up in our corner.
Yeah. Well, and there was no place to play either. So Skate King was, the all ages venue out there.
There were 2 stages, and you could play, I think, 45 minutes, and then you get off, and then the other stage would start up at the other end. I think that was probably the first time of my generation, with your mom working with Queensryche, that we all were like, oh, they got the next step up the escalator.
Well, and they didn't play a show. They got signed before they had even played a real gig. We went on a family vacation to London. I'm thinking we're there to see Big Ben and King's Road and all that, but really it was a business trip. And my mom was shopping this tape around and took it to Kerrang. And I still recall the journalist's name was Paul Suter. He was stupefied by this tape and the whole story around it all, and that they had never played a gig and everything else. I think there was an 8x10 is all he had, and the cassette. And he did a 1-2 page story calling him Rock's New Royalty, and it was in Kerrang magazine. And that is when everyone sat on their number 2 pencil and went, "Holy shit. These guys came out of Skate King?"
Everybody, talking at you because I'm going to start a new subscription thing on my website. It's called the Homestead. And it's been a crazy couple of years, and things have opened up a little bit, and they'll probably open up more next spring for more shows and more communication. But I wanted to find a way to get some of the music out that I've been working on in a way that isn't just broadcasting at people over social media. So I've decided to do a subscription service. It's called the Homestead through my website, Danny Newcomb Music. And if you sign up, you get outtakes, you get songs that I recorded over the past year, as well as some behind the scenes. I'll be working on songs and sharing things like that. I don't know about the farm pics. We'll have to see about that. The animals just won't cooperate. But just wanted to be able to have a conversation, and one that was not dictated by Facebook. So if you're interested in hearing unreleased material or getting unreleased material before it's released, sort of a preview of it all, and some benefits for signing up, you get perks, but those you'll find out about those on my website. One of the things I really, I kind of see you as being at the height of your powers now. And I think a lot of your contributions to the Seattle music scene as a business owner, and as I was trying to think of the word for it, and I came up with this word, a maverick of sorts.
Okay.
I know you like country western, so I'm just going to throw that out there. But having your own identity, having your business identity mesh with your personal identity and your personal ethics, and kind of like who you bring up, who you associate with. I mean, I know you helped a lot with or enabled Macklemore via the shop, and also with Brandi too.
It goes back 20 some years ago, but or even all the way to when I was a teenager. Being from Seattle, living here my whole life. I graduated from Seattle Prep in '86. There was a really great record store experience throughout Seattle at the time. You could go to the Ave and there'd be 8 different record shops, or
Cellophane Square, yeah.
Cellophane Square, Fallout on Olive, Peaches. The Tower Mercer store was great. And a lot that I'm Orpheum on Broadway. And to me, these are pantheons of that early scene, the record store scene, that I fell in love with. In referencing how and why I've cultivated, a bit of a scene here, and why how I've been connected with so many artists, especially young artists as they're coming up. Brandi was a young artist, Macklemore a young artist, and of course PJ were young artists at one time too. You kind of touched on it. It's more about cultivating the sale than it is making the money, cultivating the customer. As far as having artists in the shop, when I first started doing in-stores, they made jokes about in-stores, Spinal Tap, Empire Records.
As a musician on tour and you're playing a lot of small record stores,
they'll
be like, PA.
Oh, it sucks. Yeah.
Like,
and there was fluorescent light right on you, and carpet, and right. no stage, and yeah. In 91, 92, 3, I was on the road with Alice in Chains and Grunt Truck and Screaming Trees. I was one of the tour managers on that tour. I can recall Alice, Grunt Truck, the Trees. No one ever wanted to do in-stores. And here I was taking kind of offense to it, because there I am, a record store guy at that point still, even though I was doing this on the side. I realized, you've got to make it an experience as if you're at a real venue. So when I did start doing in-stores in those mid-90s at the West Seattle shop, that's what I tried to do. Now, I had a small store, so I wasn't able to do it the way that I had been dreaming of. And then that dream came to fruition in 2002 when I opened the Queen Anne store down under the Space Needle there in Queen Anne.
Right.
And our opening week was Elvis Costello, a young barefoot guy with an acoustic guitar, Jack Johnson, and a guy that was the front man of the Replacements, Paul Westerberg. That's how my week opened.
That's a good week. That's a good week.
There was a young kind of folk Americana girl, Brandi Carlisle, who had spent some time in West Seattle. I knew who she was. When my cafe first opened, she would she would be there with a cup of coffee and writing lyrics down, and then I'd see her busking. And so one of her first real gigs was the in-store at Easy Street, and there was maybe only 150, 200 people there. In the case of Macklemore, he had put out these mix CDs that he would put on consignment, and he'd come in. He was a regular. He didn't necessarily have money to buy music, but he was great. We liked his music. Never did we think that he was going to become the superstar that he became, but we really liked him. He was gregarious. He was working hard.
Yeah.
And so he put these CDs on consignment, and he would call, every Friday. How'd I do? Well, we sold one. Okay, great. I can recall about 2 months, 3 months later, with these every Friday is him calling, and eventually it got to 200 copies have sold. And then he released a poster, did a poster signing, and there was a line around the block to get this poster. The heist wasn't out yet. He was recording
But
it.
he'd been releasing videos. He'd been doing shows.
He'd been releasing
singles every 4 or 5 months, right? And with a video thing.
As far as I'm concerned, it's the greatest DIY story to ever come out of the Northwest, no question about it. And you just have to think based on the innovation that comes from sitting in the basement. And, Bill Gates and Paul Allen wrote their idea on the back of an envelope and sat in a garage.
Right.
No different than Mike McCready did or myself did,
Right.
Greg Vandy wrote a great book on Woody Guthrie and his time here in the Northwest. And, what brought a guy like Woody Guthrie all the way out here, from the Dust Bowl? What brought Pete Seeger out here? What brought Ray Charles out here? They created their own kind of folk scene here in Seattle, along with Ivor Haglund.
Yeah, I know. Acres of Clams. I was talking about it last night. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the last line in the protest song, I'm tired of taking it from the man. I'm going to sit here staring out at the Puget Sound and these acres of clams. That's where he gets that tagline that the Haglund family has used for years and years and years.
Okay. And I didn't know that.
He was a folkie at heart. And they had their time here in West Seattle. Ivor Haglund lived out here, brought Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie out here. But they spent their time up on Madison, 18th and Madison. And they coined the term hootenanny up there.
Wait a minute. That's not from Appalachia?
No.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then the replacement stole it.
Right. And just down the street from that, from 18th and Madison, on 22nd and Madison, you had the Washington Social Club, which is where Ray Charles and Quincy Jones first met, all around within the same time frame. But you think what brought a 17-year-old Ray Robinson, as he was known as, from the South all the way to Seattle, of all places. And, as the story goes, it's because, and granted, and he's also blind, getting on a bus or a train to get here, desperate to create his own music. And he felt that to do that, it was going to have to be in Seattle. There was a Black Musicians Union here. You could work the Yesler and Jackson.
Now this is Jackson Street.
Yeah.
That kind of segues into something that I was really moved by over the past year and a half, because it's been a crazy time with the pandemic.
Has it?
You're so centered, man. How do you do it?
Kicking the ass is still a step forward, Danny.
Yeah, right. That's how you have to look at it.
Yeah.
But the pictures I saw of Aaron Jones on top of the Easy Street van in the video playing the Star Spangled Banner during the Black Lives Matter protest up at the junction around your store was just amazing. That was a great moment. I really, yeah.
Yeah. And I called him 2 hours before that performance
Really?
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're neighbors. He lives 2 blocks away from me here on Alki.
Yeah.
And I says, "Hey, sorry for the short notice," but
But we
yeah,
need you.
and I did not say, play the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, no. He had a new record coming out.
Yeah.
Uh, he's got so many songs. I've never necessarily heard him speak on any of this, on Black Lives and what we were going through at that time and still going through. But I knew that he was the right guy for the job at that point, and he certainly was and still is. And he's on tour right now, and
Yeah, he's
the
doing
record's
good.
the
He's
record's
doing
doing
great.
great. Yeah.
Doing great. Well, we should probably tie it up. I don't want to keep you all morning, and I know Nikki has to edit all of this conversation, so she's going to kick me in the pants pretty soon. Is there anything that you would else you'd like to add, or anything about the future or Seattle, or things you've been thinking about?
Uh, I for me and for Easy Street, it's been really, you just can't rest on your oars or the boat's going to sink. You have to continue to just work together as a team and as small business, and with old friends and new friends to get through this. And
Yeah, right.
so it's really brought all of us together more, and that's what Seattle does. We did it during the early '90s, the late '80s, with music. When Chris Cornell said, "Hey, we're doing Temple of the Dog," or Susan Silver says, "Hey, Alice in Chains, we're gonna also bring Screaming Trees and Grunt Truck along," and it's always been unity that has kept us together. And going back to the old Yukon days, to the Ray Charles days, the Quincy Jones days, the Sonics, the Wailers, Jimi Hendrix, and we're going to keep doing that. That's just in our nature.